call the meeting to order of Board of Public Works of Monday, January 17th. Number 2, approval of minutes of December 21st. Motion by Mr. Fires, second by Mr. Rosendich. Questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Citizens' comments. Okay, we'll move on to number 4, approval of award quotation for 2022 concrete and asphalt crushing, presented by Chris Hawley, Street Superintendent. Chris.
Good evening, everybody. This year annually, we do our bids proposals for crushing of our salvaged asphalt and concrete materials. This year, we keep a running list of people that inquire. This year, we sent out 10 packets and we advertised in the Gannett newspaper publications. We received 4 bids. And I'm happy to say that Paul Bugar was the low bid. It's actually a little bit less than last year. So that's one thing that didn't go up in price this year. So our recommendation is to award Paul Bugar Trucking Incorporated from Loyal for the 2022 crushing and stockpiling of asphalt and concrete salvage materials.
Okay, motion. Mr. Varsho, second. Mr. Fire? Questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Number 5, approval of drainage easement in Daniels Addition City Subdivision, presented by Tom Turchi, City Engineer. Tom.
As we finished up the construction for this subdivision, we took a look at what might be issues when it comes to stormwater runoff as the homes are constructed in this neighborhood. And we determined that the most likely location that we would see problems would be along the north property line. And then, so what we did is we designed and created a swale going east and west on the north property line, which we have highlighted in yellow. In order to keep that swale there and ensure that the water does go east and west, it'll be necessary to create an easement to ensure the swale is not filled during home construction. This proposed swale would encompass the north 10 feet of lots 22 through 28 of the Daniels Addition plat. One special note, if you notice there's a red highlighted location. That is part of the original plat, and there's a 20-foot wide drainage easement for a swale on that property line between lots in 21 and 22. And that was basically designed for conveying stormwater flows in excess of the 10-year design storm. When we see storm events that are exceed the capacity of the storm sewer system that runs between Andrea and Sycamore. So therefore, I would recommend that an easement for the proposed and maintaining of the drainage swale be granted for the north 10 feet of lots 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 of the Daniels Addition to the City of Marshfield subdivision, located in the northeast 1/4 of the northeast 1/4 of Section 12, Township 25 North, Range 2 East, City of Marshfield, Wood County, Wisconsin, as shown.
Motion. Mr. Fisher, second. Mr. Rosendich. Questions? Mr. Rosendich.
Thank you. My question would be, is there any of those lots already is there construction already being done on any of those right now?
No, not on those lots.
Is it going to affect anything with how they can build on those lots?
Setbacks are more than that 10 feet from the rear property lines, so it should not affect construction.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 6, approval of proposed changes to the municipal code regarding special assessments for sidewalk construction, presented by Tom Turchi, City Engineer. Tom.
All right. Last year, at the end of the year, we talked about some possible costs associated with special assessments for the 17th Street project. And we discussed that in most of our projects like this, that we do typically get some type of grant funding or state or federal funding to help assist and offset costs for some of the special assessments. This project, because it was moved forward in the program, it did not have those types of benefits. So when we take into so what we wanted to do is take a look at how we assess residential properties. And for streets, when we take a look at building a street, we look at the structure needed for future traffic volumes as well as the classification of the corridor. And the construction of that pavement needs to be to accommodate traffic that is proposed for the volumes that we will anticipate on there, plus the uses like truck traffic for the lifespan of the roadway. Higher classification roadways require strengthened pavement structures that provide little benefit to the typical residential property owner. Therefore, I'd be proposing that we make some changes to the municipal code to further define what a residential typical section is and the items that are accessible to a residential property. So what I'm proposing for is shown in red in section 13-96 2G of the estimate or special assessment code. In the improvement of a street open to traffic, it is determined the maximum pavement construction that is necessary to serve an abutting property zone for residential use is an asphalt pavement with curbs 28 feet wide and 3 inches thick with 2 layers, 9 inches of crushed aggregate base course, and the resulting excavation for the asphalt and the crushed aggregate base course. Where pavement construction exceeds the above dimensions, the total cost of construction specified in this subsection or subsection 2A of this section will be based upon the pavement dimensions stated in this subsection using prorated unit costs of the actual pavement of construction or equivalent. So that basically talks about limiting the items that are accessible for residential properties on a street reconstruction where we're improving a street that's already open to traffic. The second portion that I looked at was by policy, when we do convert a ditch street to a curb and gutter section, we place sidewalk on both sides of the street. This new sidewalk is assessed per current code to 100% of the adjacent property owners, and it can be quite a substantial cost. New sidewalk installations do provide a benefit to the general public as well as the adjacent property owner. From this shared benefit, I believe a modification to the municipal code could be justified to reduce the financial burden to the adjacent property owners. And I would be proposing the following changes in red. Sidewalk construction, the assessment for new construction of sidewalk where sidewalk does not currently exist shall be assessed at 50% the cost of construction plus 10% engineering and administration overhead. Replacement and repair of a public sidewalk done in conjunction with a street improvement project shall be 100% of the whole cost of construction plus 10% engineering and administration overhead, except as follows. And if sidewalk is replaced and does not meet the current standard for sidewalk construction repair policy, it is removed and replaced as part of the street improvement project and assessed to the adjacent property owner. But if we're removing it to change grade, adjust slopes, or to meet the Americans with Disability Act, that sidewalk is not subject to special assessments. So in the last, the last several projects that we've installed new sidewalk on in the past probably decade have been projects that have had a good share of the cost assisted by state or federal funding. For example, Washington Street, where the sidewalk was an 80-20 split between the property owners and state and federal funding. So there was a lot less reduction or a huge reduction in the cost to those adjacent property owners because of the additional funding. So therefore, what I am recommending is that section 1396 2G and section 1396 5 of special assessments of the municipal code be amended as noted above, and that these proposed changes be forwarded to the Common Council for their consideration. Are there any questions?
Motion, could I get a motion and then motion by Mr. Fire, second by Mr. Rosenich. Questions? Dan?
I would just add a couple additional comments. These changes that Tom is proposing apply to residential properties only. So if it's a commercial property or industrial area, they would still pay the 100% of the cost of sidewalk. Second, when we talked about this back in December, I think it was, the question came up about what are other communities doing with regard to special assessments? So I looked at a few of our surrounding, what we call comparables, Stevens Point, Rapids, Wausau. What I could tell, their ordinance still has 100% responsibility to the property owner. What you don't know is how often are they actually assessing and putting in new sidewalk? Are they doing it as we have done in the past, mainly when they have some outside funding sources to assist with that? Or are property owners getting 100% of that cost regularly? I wasn't able to check up on all that. I also looked at some smaller communities like Medford, where they don't charge anything for new sidewalk construction based on their ordinance. Again, it could be because they don't do much new sidewalk, but a smaller community like that may choose not to assess their residents for that. So what it seems to me is larger communities probably still use this 100% rule, smaller communities not so much, and we're somewhere in between. So I don't think we necessarily have to follow what everyone else does, especially if we wanted to get into a situation of constructing more sidewalk and making more of our street corridors pedestrian friendly. We would have more public buy-in, I think, if we weren't charging 100% that cost to the adjacent property owner. So anyway, we support this plan change here and would recommend your.
Tom?
Just one other quick add. I know that you asked what kind of cost ramifications does this have to the project itself. This project having mostly city property adjacent to a good portion of it, the sidewalk reduction, if we change the ordinance, would reduce the special assessed by about $35,778. And then the street cost, if we go to the change in the ordinance, would reduce the special assess from $94,666 to $75,456 for about a $19,211 difference. So a total reduction in assessable would be approximately about just over $51,000.
Thank you. Anybody? Mr. Rosenthal?
Just to be clear, this doesn't affect anything like a bike trail or walking trail, like when it comes along Lincoln there. That's all separate, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the property how do they get reassessed, or do they get reassessed on a bike trail? Okay.
No.
Okay, anybody else before we vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. And number 7, approval of schedule for the East 17th Street paving project, presented by Tom Turchi, city engineer. Tom.
All right, this is a proposed schedule. I'll kind of just hit some of the highlights and explain some of the items in it. The plan approval has already been completed, and the preliminary resolution has been through the Board of Public Works. Tonight we're approving the paving schedule. Look to start advertising on Quest and the News Herald in early February 11th, 12th, and 19th. I have for the final acceptance of pre-qualification, I have Wednesday, February 23rd. That is when I will receive the final inputs for pre-qualification, but I intend to bring them to the Board of Public Works for the meeting that's on the 28th for review and final acceptance, just to clarify that. We're hoping to have plans and specs online by February 25th, Friday, and want to open bids by Wednesday, March 9th at 4 o'clock. The mailing, the preliminary resolution report, notice and public hearing, and informational meeting notices, I have slated at March 11th, but I anticipate to be able to have those out earlier than that. That would be the drop dead date for meeting the requirements for advertising and putting it into the Common Council agenda. We'd be looking at approving the low bidder on March 14th at the Board of Public Works, approving the paving bids at the March 22nd Common Council meeting, and then start preparing the contract and getting ready for construction. I'd like to have a public informational meeting at least by March 15th. That would be the drop dead date there. And then the public hearing is scheduled for March 22nd, along with the final resolution by the Common Council. Looking to have construction start in April, mid-April, And our contracts will be written to have a final completion date of Friday, August 19th of 2022, which is a tight schedule. So I'd recommend approval of the schedule as proposed.
Motion. Mr. Fire, second. Mr. Varsho. Questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Number 8, update on advanced disposable waste management transfer station hours presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works. Dan.
Thank you. A few weeks ago, we were notified by Advanced Disposal that they're going to be, will no longer be open on Saturday mornings for their transfer station site. And that is due to staffing shortages, low tonnage that they take in on a Saturday morning there. And then they also mentioned that the Cranberry Creek landfill, which all of their refuse is hauled to, will not be open on Saturdays anymore. And that makes it difficult for them to meet the timelines in removing that waste from their site. So they are communicating this to the public. They have it posted in their office and will be updating their website. This does not affect the yard waste site. So yard waste will still be 24/7, 7 days a week. It's just the drop off for garbage and recyclables through their scaled area would not be open on Saturday mornings. I was curious to see if this was a requirement the last time we bid out this service, which was 2017. And in our solicitation at that time, we did not require even a local transfer station be provided because it would have limited the number of companies that could have bid on the service at that time. So we didn't require that they even have a local transfer station, much less dictate hours in that solicitation. So it may cause some inconvenience to some folks, but the volumes are pretty low on Saturdays anyway, and they'll still maintain their hours throughout the week, which is 7 a.m. to. So if there's any questions or concerns, I can relay that back to Advanced Disposal. But this is just an informational update tonight.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Number 9, set date and time for the first Board of Public Works meeting in February, presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works. Dan.
Okay, thank you. So the February is one of those months where the first of the month is on on a Tuesday. So that puts the second Tuesday of the month just 1 week later. In those cases, we've held our Board of Public Works meeting on the last Monday of the previous month. So that'd be January 31st for our Board of Public Works meeting, 5:30 p.m. Second meeting would be on February 14th at 5:30. And then we would line up with the council meetings on the second and fourth Tuesdays. So I recommend your approval of that this evening. And the same thing will happen in March. That's why Tom mentioned a Board of Public Works meeting on March 28th. Didn't think far enough ahead to include that approval of change dates in this agenda. So we'll do that sometime in February. But for tonight, I'm recommending that we move our first meeting of February to Monday, January 31st, 5 p.m. Second meeting, Monday, February 14th, p.m.
Motion to approve. Who is it, Mr. Rosendich, second? Mr. Fire, comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 10, recommended items for future agendas. Anybody have anything? Okay, motion to adjourn by Mr. Rosendich, second by Mr. Varsho. Thank you. We are adjourned.